Hey, what's up, everyone? It's John Samuel, and this is All Access Live. And today we have a very special guest. We have Jay Pope, who is the founder and CEO of Pope Tech. So, welcome, Jay. How are you?
Doing good, John. It's great to be here. Great to see you again.
I
So
know. I'm excited to have you on today, and I'm surprised I haven't had you on before. And you recently moved to North Carolina from Utah, and so we've had the opportunity to see each other in person because we actually started our relationship a few years ago. But I would love to learn more about Pope Tech. Introduce yourself so we can kind of understand your accessibility journey.
yeah, so with my wife and three kids, we just moved to North Carolina this past summer from Utah. So that's been quite the adventure, but we're loving it. Right before I was just telling John like how much I love the weather right now. It's perfect. But me and my brothers, so I used to work for Utah State University. And my introduction to accessibility was I was a front end developer. And one day I had built this application for the Affordable Care Act to track student timesheets, basically.
Yeah.
And so I had done the front end on that. And we were in a meeting and they're like, well, good thing it's accessible. And I was like, wait, what's that? It wasn't quite as bad as that sounds. Like a lot of my training had included a lot of things with accessibility. Like I was doing forms right and images right, but I just didn't know, and I didn't know why I was doing the things I was doing.
Was it the assumption that everything was accessible? Did that person who asked you if it was accessible, do they know what accessibility was?
Yeah, so they knew, and they had the assumption that it was because it was a requirement, because they were starting to talk about, some of the users with disabilities who'd be using this.
Yeah.
And this was like towards the end of the project. And I was like, oh.
So is this like 0809?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so right around there. And maybe a little bit, maybe maybe 2011 actually.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, and that was my introduction. And there was this group on campus called WebAIM, because they're based out of Utah State. And so we emailed Jared Smith and asked some questions. And and then that was my first like aha moment of, there's this thing. And so we went and fixed it. And then since then, there was multiple moments like that. Like the first time I saw a blind user use a screen reader, because after that I realized this is important and I was doing it. And then when you actually were able to see the impact of the decisions that you're making, that was kind of like another like aha moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right. It's the aha moments in accessibility. It's like in my head, I'm going through, I'm like, yeah, that is right. It's like everyone goes through that aha moment, and it really is special.
Yeah. So that was, and then after that, I met my wife on that team. So I was a programmer, she was a graphic designer, and we started freelancing and doing web design, and then kind of partnered with my brothers. So there are 6 Pope brothers involved as partners, and we created a web agency. So we built web apps and websites and did design, and but we always had this accessibility thing in the back of our mind. And we worked with WebAIM to take the Wave. So Wave's a free testing tool you can use.
Yeah.
And so we partnered with them to take that and create a site-wide automated accessibility tool. And then that's all we do. We don't build websites anymore. We just do accessibility. It's so much I guess more fun, have more impact and do things that are made more useful, I think. So
yeah. No, I love it. I mean, because you learned this, you had that aha moment, but then you did something about it. You took action about it. And when you were talking to your brothers about this, how did when did they have their aha moments, or how did you share that this is the direction we should go?
Yeah, I think each one's different, right? And that's one of the things like that we've learned is you can go teach a team of like developers or content creators or whoever. And some people it clicks sooner, some later. So like each person like has to kind of realize it themselves. And there's like both the technical understanding of like how to do it, what to do, and then there's like the understanding of like why this matters, and like
Yeah.
we're doing this, like we believe in it. And so each one was just a little bit different on, but it's kind of the same thing. We sent them all to trainings. Like even to this day, every Pope Tech employee we send to like a 2-day WebM training. It doesn't even matter. Like if they're an accountant, like we'll send them to like everyone gets sent to this because we want everyone to like have that opportunity to see why this matters, like and the impact. And so just over time, each person had to realize it for themselves and like what it means and why it's important to them. So, but like my brothers, they're once they realize like what the impact is, they quickly like sometimes it's harder with some people, right, to get them to understand why this matters. So
Yeah. I mean, when you got first exposed to accessibility, when you talked about during the Affordable Care Act, creating that platform, you were relatively early in your development career, right?
yeah.
So do what was the impact of starting off early, thinking about accessibility? Like, what impact did that make?
Well, so for example, years later, some of the first websites I did, they were still up, and I'm like, there's accessibility issues, and I felt bad, like I had created these problems,
Yeah.
But by starting early, to answer your question, I prevented like by understanding that early, having that training, the next hundreds of websites that like didn't have those issues anymore, because a lot of the things aren't that difficult, right? So you just learn how to do labels, right? You learn how to do images, right? And now the next time I see that, I just do it the right way, right? And so like you prevented all these other issues that you would have caused if you just didn't understand.
Yeah. And, in the same vein, you and I recently talked about, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about your product and how it works. But then I'd like to talk about how, the way you just talked about, it's simple when you break it down into steps. And can you talk about how you're making it easier for developers to make those correct issues by breaking it down into those simple issues?
Yeah. So like one of the main goals of Pope Tech is we want to help people simplify accessibility. There's always there's different tools and strategies, and so we want to simplify by helping teach people. And so every time like we got on a sales call, even we're walking people through the process. So we've kind of adapted a security framework into an accessibility framework. So we took the NIST security framework and adapted it. And so we're teaching people just to understand, like, you have to think through not only like just automatic testing, but manual testing, but not just manual testing. Like, what do you do when you find issues?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've probably seen this a bunch. You go out and do an audit, like Abler does a manual test, and then nobody fixes anything sometimes. And I know you have services to help them fix it. But that's a challenge of like, what do you do after you find the issues? How do you prevent them from just happening over and over again? Early on, like one of our first customers, it was a movie theater company, and they had one team fixing all the issues, and then another team creating all the issues. And it was just over and over a cycle, and we're like, this is just not very useful, right? And so we try to help people like think through their processes and how, like, what's going to give you a more accessible outcome. And so Pope Tech kind of gives you that initial baseline. Here's where you're at for across all your pages, and then track your progress over time, and then embed like teaching opportunities. So like, why does this matter? How do you fix it?
But, one of the things that I really have enjoyed, from our conversations, and, Abler, we use Pope Tech as one of our tools. And I mean, in one of the things that, you and I have talked about is that you didn't just create a product to do testing, you created a product that people are going to use.
Right.
right? Why is that important to you?
Well, what's the point of it if it's not impactful? Is the first thing. So an example of this, and I think this is a little
A lot of
unique,
people, I'm
but
following.
if you added 1,000 pages, like, so if a customer has 1,000 pages, we'll just let them rescan as much as they want because we want them to actually use it. And so there's no cost for rescanning those same
Yeah.
pages. They could rescan them every day if that would help them, improve accessibility. And so that's one of the things we track is how often our users actually use, the product and the tools, and we want to help them use it more and be more effective. So.
Yeah, I think that's something that's different between you and others, right? Because it's it's so easy to, you know, to it's so easy to be like, oh yeah, I got my money, but you know, I don't need to do anything else, right? The deal is
Right.
over. But I think your perspective on this thing, they can scan as much as they want because we want them, we want our customers to actually make change and take action.
Yeah, and
And I
then
really
our
respect that.
new we have a new plan where they can basically ask us questions as well because we want them to actually make the right changes. So if you're not sure, we have documentation they can ask questions, um, and then we embed training into it. And so that's like our goal. We want to actually help improve accessibility, right?
Yeah.
um, that's
And I
that's
think that's why we're partner with you because we've actually even shifted um, our model because you talked about it, right? We do the testing, and then sometimes people didn't make the changes. So we shifted our process so that we're along the way. We're partnering with organizations now to really, be by their side as they're going through it. And I think that's very much aligned with what y'all do, and I really respect that. But you know, based, you have a lot of education clients where you have huge sites. What are some of the things that you've seen that a lot of people are making, like, you see a lot of these issues, maybe common issues, and what can people do? What are some of those common issues and what can people do about them?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the like images, forms, headings. If you look, so every year WebAIM will scan 1 million websites with the Wave engine, and
Mm-hmm.
they look at the top 5 issues, and they're really the same things all the time. And they are easy to train on, but the challenge. So, like you brought up, we have a lot of higher ed clients.
Yeah.
They just have hundreds of content creators. There's so many people creating content. You have people creating course content, websites. They'll literally have millions of pages, at a lot of these universities. And so the challenge is getting people trained to have both that understanding of why and the impact of accessibility, and then the technical of how and what.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that can be a big challenge for them. But one of the things I heard this, and I wish I knew who I could attribute it to, but like many people knowing a little bit about accessibility is way more impactful than like just one expert trying to do it all at a big organization.
Yeah.
Um, you want the expert, but if you have 100 people creating content, if they can just understand 2 or 3 or 4 principles,
Yeah.
that's going to be so impactful rather than playing whack-a-mole, trying to fix them all,
Exactly. Because and I think that's one of the things is some people see thousands of issues
Yeah.
and it's almost like shell shock. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to put that to the side. I'm not going to deal with that. I'll push that out. But when you realize it, you can break it down to smaller pieces and bite size. And that goes back to what we were talking about. I think one of the things that y'all have been working on is breaking it down into the smaller issues and helping to guide people. Say, let's fix this issue first. All right,
Right.
great. You did that. Let's move to the
Right.
next one. And it makes them much more attainable. And how has the response been with organizations with shifting to that model?
Yeah, it's been it's been really useful, and one of the reasons why is if you think about it, like um, people often talk about manual testing versus automated,
Yep.
and like that's not how we think about it at all. They work together,
Mm-hmm.
because if I'm manually testing, I'm, like you're saying, I'm breaking into smaller things. I'm doing maybe a small sample. Like if somebody has 1,000,000 pages, you're not going to manually test 1,000,000 pages.
Yes.
You're going to be having a whole team for years to do that, right?
Yeah.
And then everything would change before you even got around to it.
Yep.
And so you have to use sampling. So you break it down into bite-sized things and use sampling. And then automated testing goes the other way, where you can test 1,000,000 pages, but you're testing a smaller sample.
Yep.
So one is you're testing a smaller sample of pages, and the other you're testing a smaller sample of tests. And then by working together, you have more, coverage. But when somebody's looking at it, they need to break it down into something small. If I could just fix all the issues on 4 pages, on most sites, I'm 80% there, maybe even 90, right? Because I've caught templates, I've caught components. You be a little strategic about the 4 pages.
That's correct.
And so that can be, really impactful of breaking it down into smaller chunks. And then one of the things that I always tell people too is it's not just about testing everything. You want to test, because if you test everything and don't fix it, it didn't do you any good. So you need to test something that you're actually going to fix. So if I could just test let's say all my images on my website.
Yeah.
And fix all those and actually go through the whole process. I fix them, I add training in to prevent them. So I kind of go through this whole framework.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really impactful. And now I know what to do for the next thing because I can build off my success. So now I can go add in another principle and build off of it. So.
Yeah, no, totally. And a lot of what we're talking about today is really about, and that training you're talking about is how do you prevent those issues from happening again? And kind of leads me into the next thing I want to talk about is Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which is a week from today,
Right.
May 18th. We're going to be hosting an event at GAD Raleigh at the Pendo offices. So go.
I will be there.
Awesome, Jay. Awesome.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be great. And so, Jay, do you remember your first GAD event or when you heard about GAD?
Yeah, so it was, I've gone to a bunch remote because I lived in northern Utah and there wasn't a ton of GAD events going on. So I've been to a bunch remote. So this actually will be my first in-person one. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
But I have enjoyed just an extra focus on accessibility just throughout the community. You see more people talking about it. There's things posted on social media. And I think, the goal is just have more people have that aha moment of, hey, this thing is important. This really impacts people's lives. So.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too, because this is my first physical one. I'm
Nice.
hosting it. We're hosting it, but it's like, but for me, it started off 5 years ago and I wrote a blog and I think that was the original, GAD started off with with a blog and I did that with my own journey, starting off with that. And then, we moved into the pandemic and everything and we moved into virtual events, but it really is exciting to have a physical event and to bring great leaders like yourself into a room. And, and the best thing about it is, and this is something I really wanted to make sure that our GAD event was I didn't want us to be speaking to the echo chamber.
Right.
And what's super exciting is that we have over 100 people who are 130 or 40 people now who are coming. Majority of those people are not accessibility, right? I think 90% are not accessibility, which is that's the purpose of this, right? We want those aha moments that you just talked about. But, I think in the Triangle, we're lucky that we have some amazing, accessibility folks.
There's a lot going on in the Triangle. So
it's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm hoping that we can bring this, we will be bringing it to everyone, making a hybrid event. So really excited about that. But really excited to have you and others in the same room and to share this. And Jay, I'm just so thankful for all you do at Poke Tech and the work that you've been doing to create aha moments for everyone. So thank you, Jay.
Thank you for sharing your, I just want to do a call out for John's book. There's a lot of aha moments in there. You should check it out. So I went to your book signing, read it, and it's just awesome to see your journey and see the perspective and learn from you. So
Well, thank you, Jay. That's very sweet of you. I didn't. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you can pay me after. So. No, really, it's a quick little read and it's awesome. So
Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it. It makes me so happy. But thank you all for tuning in, and please join us next week if you can at the Pendo offices for GAD Raleigh 2023. And if you can't, we will be sharing the link for people to attend virtually. But thanks to everyone. Thank you, Annie, for all you do in the back end, and we'll see you next time.
thanks, everybody.
Thanks.